Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Islam Study Circle. As per our tradition, we'll first read out a verse from the Quran, we'll then discuss a hadith, and in our third segment, we'll be discussing a passage from the Bible. Finally, we will be also having a discussion on a social topic, and then we will conclude this session on a Q&A segment. So, starting off with the Quranic verse, this is verse 256 of Surah Baqarah, the second surah. It reads, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. There is no compulsion from God in religion. The fact is that after this Quran, guidance is now totally distinct from error. So he who renounces Satan and believes in God, it is as if he has grasped a strong rope that can never break. And God hears all and knows all. This verse is one of the most prominent verses which actually tell us that as far as accepting religion is concerned, it has not been made a forceful compulsion from the Almighty. At another instance, we know that the Quran has said, "Man sha'a fal yu'min, man sha'a fal yakfur." Whoever wants, he can profess belief, and whoever wants, he can profess disbelief. In other words, the Almighty has not created people in a way that He has compelled them to follow a certain path. He has actually given them the authority, the freedom, and the will to do what they would like. So that is precisely what is implied here is la ikrah fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. You are required to profess faith or the lack of it in the light of your own conscience, in the light of your own intellect. And yes, there is this penalty if you don't accept faith, but in this world, as far as any punishment is concerned, except for issues in the times of prophets of God and in his messengers' times, the post-prophetic era in which we are now living in, people can live according to their own wishes, according to their own understanding of religion, and their accountability will be deferred to the hereafter. We also have discussed this a number of times that people who live in the times of God's messengers, for them, however, the accountability takes place in this very world. And that is precisely what we have understood from a number of verses of the Quran. However, as we have seen that this verse, la ikraha fi din, it tells us that even in the times of prophets of God, if you have to accept faith, it has to be your own decision. Yes, there are going to be repercussions. Yes, there are going to be consequences. But as far as accepting religion is concerned, it is a personal choice. You have not been forced to do it. And the second important thing which this verse has actually outlined is قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ رُشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ, that once the Quran has been revealed, had there been any confusion or doubt regarding guidance or error, that has now been absolutely made distinct. So قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ رُشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ actually means that as far as guidance is concerned, it is now set apart from error. Any deviance in this regard is something that anyone can know, because as a scale, as a barometer, as a final thing, as a final word on everything, the Quran is present with us. And as far as the invitation of the Quran is concerned, as far as the message of the Quran is concerned, viewers, we have been discussing this a number of times, that the Quran also reasons out its discourse. It actually argues in favor of the things that he wants us to believe. So he does not want us to, it does not want us to believe in a blind way. So if you want to believe in God, if you want to believe in the hereafter or the prophets of God, or the fact that this world will ultimately end on a day of judgment, the Almighty has presented copious and abundant proofs of this in his book. All these tenets of faith, all these articles of faith, they are substantiated on the basis of reasoning. That is why the Quran says, قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Once the Quran has been revealed, guidance is now absolutely clear. We know that the previous book before the Quran, which occupied the status of a book, was of course the Torah. We know that the Injil, which was revealed to Jesus, it was basically supplementary to the Torah itself, because the law was enshrined in the Torah. And the Injil or the Gospel, they are basically They were basically meant to refresh their guidance in a different way, and that is the wisdom that had been lost upon the Jews was once again revived. But we also know that both these books, they were not available at the time of the Prophet's arrival in their original language. Their original language had been lost. We know that the Quran, before the Quran, of course, Jesus spoke Syriac, but the Bible or the Gospels were never written in Syriac. For the first time, they were written in the Greek language, and that is to 70 or 80 years after the demise of Jesus. However, we know that the Torah was given to Moses, and it was given in the Hebrew language, and that also could not survive in its original language. Today, both these books, including the Psalms of David, uh, all these three books are available as translations. The Psalms too is like a supplement to the Torah. So basically, the book which really holds the importance of a complete book, or you can say the Sharia of God, that is the Torah. So as far as the Psalms or the Zabur, as the Quran calls these Psalms, and the Gospel, as the Quran calls Injil, both these are supplements to the Torah. And all these three books are not available in their original language. Hence, it was essential that if prophethood had to be terminated on Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then there had to be a final book that had to be preserved, and preserved in a way that there was not the slightest change in that book. The original language was to be preserved, and that has precisely what has happened. So even after 14 and a half centuries, we find that the book of God is being read in a very large part of the Ummah, almost 98%, with the same text that we are following today. And of course, there are some variant texts, which is not our topic today, but these variant texts are basically uh, additions that have been erroneously understood and implemented in certain countries. So the Quran, as I said, is a book which reasons out. It tries to make people understand. It's not just the tenets of faith that it does so. Also, it reasons out things regarding prohibited items and lawful items. For example, it will also reason out that why is alcohol forbidden, or why are we required not to consume pork, or I mean, you can take up any directive of religion, whether it's of a positive nature or a negative nature, whether it stops us from doing something or whether it asks us to do something. All these sorts of directives, they are based on sound reasoning, and that is precisely what the Quran has said here. قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. And the Quran actually goes on to say, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. So anyone who renounces Satan, Taghut is the synonymous to Satan. So anyone who disbelieves in Satan and he actually comes to God and he believes in him, then the Quran says, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى. It is as if he has held on to a very strong rope that will not break. So the Quran is like that rope. We know that at other instances also it has been called Hablullah, which means the rope of God. And it has been said that if you hold on to that book of God, if you hold on to that rope of God, you will not go astray. It is a book in which you will be connected, through which you will be connected to God. And of course, this is something that we all experience, that when we are reading the Quran and understanding it, we are enthralled ourselves. We simply have that feeling that it is the call of our own heart. It is something that we find in our own nature. And when we see that the Almighty is also calling us to precisely the same message that we find in our own nature, we leap towards it. It is as if it is something that was missing from our lives, and we have found that missing connection, that missing link. So that is what the Quran is all about. It is a rope that extends from this world, from our domain to the domain of God. It connects us to God. It gives us an introduction to God. It tells us that He is the only Savior that we have. All other relationships are temporary. The only permanent relationship is that of God. And then, of course, it says, Wallahu Samiun Alim, that God hears and knows all, which, of course, tells us that whatever we do, whatever we are whispering, even if it is a whisper, God, it's in the knowledge of God. And if we do something in a hidden way, it might be hidden from the people of the world, but not from God. And that is why He is called Alim. He knows everything. So this knowledge of God entails that He will hold us accountable for what we do, and anything that we do in ignorance maybe, or out of emotions, they are It has been given a prescribed methodology that we can repent from it. But if, of course, something that we hold on to and we arrogantly hold on to, that is something which is going to be really costly in the hereafter. Now we move on to the next segment of our study circle, which is a hadith that we will be studying. This is a hadith from the Al-Jami al-Sahih of Imam Muslim, and it has been narrated on the authority of the Prophet's wife, Aisha. So the words are, عن عائشة قالت سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول ما من شيء يصيب المؤمن حتى الشوكة تصيبه إلا كتب الله له بها حسنة أو حطت عنه بها خطيئة. Aisha said, I heard God's messenger as saying, for every calamity that strikes a believer, even if it is the pricking of a thorn, God writes for him a pious deed in his account, or one of his sins is obliterated from his account because of the patience he shows. So, of course, this is something of a big reassurance on the part of the Prophet. And we know that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he has divulged the hikmah, the wisdom, and of course, some of the very intricate points philosophically and metaphysically from his own understanding of religion, and it is in the form of his conversations that we are enlightened about a number of aspects of religion. And it is precisely one of these aspects that is discussed here, and that is the role of patience, that is the role of accepting the will of God and accepting something as one's destiny. But of course, this doesn't mean that you are accepting something because you are not, because simply you are helpless. It is accepting something with resilience, with resolve, with steadfastness, after doing one's best. So the thing that we have to understand here is the Almighty's Prophet has said that if there is something which harms a person, even if it is as small as a thorn, if you could prick a thorn, and God writes a pious deed for him, because basically what you'll do is that when you are put in a spot of bother, when something troubles you, you do not complain, you do not have that ungrateful attitude, but you are patient on that. And God says that when this happens, that you show patience on any trial that comes your way. So you're not only one of your sins is forgiven, but at the same time, one unit of reward is also deposited in your account. This, of course, is something which is magnanimous, something magnanimous on the part of the Almighty. And also important here, viewers, is to understand that as far as patience is concerned, to be honest, patience requires patience. It needs a lot of effort. It's easier said than done. Patience is something that doesn't come our way easily. We have to be very, very strong-willed. And that strong will it only comes with our strong God connection. So if you have to be patient, if you have to be resilient, if you have to persevere in the wake of adversities, then your strong God connection is something that's going to account for it. If the connection is weak, then you succumb, and it will be not easy at all to show that patience. So patience in itself, as I said, it requires patience, and this is how we can connect to God. And the biggest way to connect to God, of course, is by understanding that He is our Creator. He is looking after us. We have so much to thank Him for. His blessings are profound, starting off with our own human body. If you have a normal human body, starting off with your eyes, your faculties, they are so immense a blessing that ask those people who are devoid of them, ask those people who are without them, a person who is blind, a person who is deaf, a person who cannot walk, he's lame in any way, or he has or she has some other handicap. It will bring us that awareness that God has been super kind to us. The parents we have, extended family that we have, if we are able to live under a roof, we are able to have clothes, we have access to education and health facilities. So these are blessings that we take for granted. But if we keep a track of them, we always would end up thanking God. And that God connection starts with that attitude of gratitude. The more grateful you are to God, the more closer you become to Him. And then, of course, we know that sharing our blessings, whatever blessings God has given us, they should not be just kept with us. Of course, we can use them But another important thing which we know from the Quran, which we know from our own nature, is to share our blessings. The more we share these blessings, the more we will find peace. The more we'll find that soothing of the eyes, as the Quran calls this particular situation. Qurratu a'yun, as the Quran says. It gives you that comfort in the eyes. It gives you that serenity of the heart. You are able to sleep peacefully at night. This only comes by acknowledging God's favors, not only acknowledging them, but sharing them with the underprivileged people around us. And then, of course, connecting to God through the Quran, through previous scriptures, because these scriptures and the final scripture, which is the Quran, they are a means of knowing the will of God. They are a means of reminding us of a number of things that we might be doing amiss. They are a powerful and a very profound expression of God's communication with us. So that is also something that we have to do. And of course, praying to the Almighty as much as we can in the form of the salah or the prayer, in which we are able to make sense of what we are talking to God about. Unless we are able to make sense of that, it'll more be a mechanical thing and it will not have that desired effect. So these are some of the ways in which we can really make that connection with God a strong connection. And it is from here, this strong connection, that we will derive that powerhouse of patience that is needed to traverse the rugged terrain of life. This is something that we have to always keep in mind, and also know that when we face trials, when we face tribulations, they have something hidden for us which is in our own favor. These trials come to us in order to make us strong. These trials come to us so that at times we might be doing something wrong in our life and we are not aware of that. And these trials, they shake and jolt us, and then we are reminded of something that we might be doing wrong. These trials are also opportunities to come closer to God. So remember, trials have their own wisdom, but it is for us to realize this wisdom, show patience, and remember, if we do so, then as this beautiful narrative of the Prophet has said, the Almighty says that whenever you receive any sort of harm comes your way, and you show that patience, then whatever sin that you might have done, one of your sins, they are forgiven. And of course, as far as piety is concerned, one pious deed or one unit of a pious deed is written in your account. We have now become to the third segment, and this is the Bible verse of the day. And I'm going to read out this verse 26 from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter number 10. It says, "And have no fear of those who put to death the body, but are not able to put to death the soul. But have fear of him who has power to give soul and body to destruction in hell." Again, one of the very beautiful ways in which Prophet Jesus has communicated his message to his disciples and through them to the rest of us. It is something that really accounts for a very, very moving narrative on his part. And of course, we all know that in this world, if you are in any way subjected to persecution, and the matters reach the extent that you are killed, then what is being said here is your soul, I mean your own body is something that will be executed, or that will be killed, but none can kill your soul. Whoever the person in this world, what at best he can do is to put to death your mortal remains, your body, but he cannot harm your soul. He is someone who is incapable of harming one's soul. There is just one being, the Almighty, who can put the soul as well as the body to destruction. And as has been said here, hellfire is that place, and may God protect all of us. So what is being said here is that in this world, even if the greatest of your enemies and the greatest of tyrants and dictators and horrific people that have been born on the face of the earth, we know of Genghis Khan, we know of Hitler, we know of so many rulers who have been horrendous in their crimes against humanity. But all that they could do was to put the person to death. They could not do anything to his soul. His soul was deposited in the treasures of the Almighty, in the safekeeping of the Almighty. So it is on the day of judgment that the soul will rise, and the soul will be given a new body, and then the accountability is going to take place. So it is this accountability that we have to fear. because that accountability will account for something that can be very grave or something that can be very rewarding. And that is where we have to understand that prophets of God, and of course, the Quran itself as a scripture, the Bible as a scripture, the Torah as a scripture, they all have a very special role in our lives. And they keep reminding us of this immense reality, of this tremendous reality that we tend to lose sight of. And that is accountability. Accountability in the hereafter is something that must be before us. It should be writ large before us, because we cannot escape that accountability. Come what may, every soul born on this earth, every soul who has tread the face of this earth is going to face that eternal accountability. That accountability, which is going to be something that will make or break something or people forever. So it is here that this beautiful verse of the Bible is reminding us that if you lose your body here, not to worry, because you'll be compensated for that, for any injustice that you might suffer. But if you are unjust yourself, then you have really had it, because now you will be pitted against the Almighty, who will take account, who will call you to account. You'll be sitting before Him, you'll be standing before Him, in fact, and that standing before Him would be either because of tremendous shame that you're not able to present any excuse for the evil deeds that you did, or that would be out of euphoria or happiness and enjoyment that you were able to justify your existence on this earth. So, with this, we come to an end to these three segments of the study circle, and now we go on to the fourth segment, which is basically a moderated session in which we discuss ideas and in which we all participate. And I'll urge all of you to participate in this discussion, because this is basically sharing your experience. It is basically inspiring others to do things that we might be doing and we are shy of doing those things. So spending in charity is the topic that is going to be discussed today. And over to you, Mariam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. So I'll start off the discussion by saying, one, I don't have a lot of money, so within my means, because I'm still a student. So what I do, in my case, is if I like an organization and I'd like to support them, the little whatever I can do, I just prefer to give like a monthly donation type thing or a bi-weekly donation type situation, because one, it's easier for me to manage, and two, they get that continuous support. But besides monetary charity, I think charity comes in all sorts of ways. So personally, smiling at people, I try my best to remind myself that even smiling is charity. So when I see strangers, I try to give them a good smile. If somebody is going through troubled times, I try my best to hear them out. So little things like that, I think they also help and add up to the situation. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. We have Bisma up next. Bisma, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. So my question to you is, you know, people who live lavishly, good for them. But my question is, when there's a lot of show of money, but then there's a lot of charity involved also with that same show of money, how are we as average people supposed to view it? Of course, we're not supposed to judge them because that's God's place, but it still looks a little repulsive, for want of a better word, So what is the take of Islam or
actually, Bisma, this is a time for learning from yourself, people like you. So basically, we are discussing spending in charity. So we'll have a Q&A right after this. But my request to you would be that this is a topic in which you have to enlighten us regarding your own experience or your own wisdom and whatever you have in mind.
Oh, okay, got it. So what about being charitable to yourself? Just to, how they say, kind of, if you are kind to yourself.
We can discuss a question in the next segment. It is, and in this segment, we would like an input from your kind self.
Okay. Then I'll just move it on to someone else and come back to this later.
Okay, please raise your hand again. We have someone named Apple iPhone. Please go ahead.
Doctor, my name is Ahmed. The charity experience I have that I used to ask my mom that every week she
Mm.
donates some money on my behalf. So
Okay.
whenever she did that, or if I do myself as well,
Mm-hmm.
so I feel very light. I don't know, it means that somebody has put some burden on me, and the
Mm-hmm.
moment I do that or my mom do that, I can
Mm-hmm.
at once realize that somebody had did something, and I normally phone her, but she is not anymore in this world. I
Mm-hmm.
used to phone her, have you done something? I have done some charity on your behalf.
Okay.
Or if I do myself, so I will get that very strange experience. I don't know how I relate it to the my religion, or it's been happening something. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's happened to me
Mm-hmm.
all the time,
Right.
not a single time, all the time.
Mm. Mm. So I think it's a beautiful feeling that you have shared. I mean, it is like that soothing feeling that I just referred to. That when you are helping other people, when you are doing something for other people, it brings you tremendous joy. It brings you tremendous satisfaction and assurance, and that is that feeling that perhaps that you're sharing. That when you spend something on other people, it gives you that satisfaction that you're not just doing something for your own self, but you are also willing to go as far as possible to help other people. So I think that is a beautiful thing that you have shared, and I would say that maybe many people do go through this feeling of satisfaction and happiness, and this itself is something which is a selfish motive to spend on others. If not for anything else, it's going to soothe your own being.
Imran Babar, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Doctor.
Walaikum assalam.
So the new meaning of charity was, just I came across that and I was
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed. One
Mm-hmm.
of the colleagues, and I just came to know by accident that my perception of charity is that we donate. If somebody is needy, we give them money, or we
Mm-hmm.
donate to a cause. A
Mm-hmm.
colleague, I accidentally came to know that his wife was in India, where
Mm-hmm.
their family driver was sick. And she
Mm-hmm.
specially traveled from here because there was nobody to take care of him or would
Mm-hmm.
understand his condition. She stayed there for about 2 weeks unless
Mm.
that person was treated and came out of the hospital.
Beautiful.
And that I believe was overwhelming, that we think, we give some money and we
Mm.
have done our duty.
Mm.
But there is another
Abs-
sense in duty. And then I came across a hadith that if a Muslim just
Mm.
goes out of his way for some
Mm.
orphan or some widow to just do something for them,
Mm.
to spend their time to help them. I think that
Mm.
time factor was something that I always personally neglected. And
Absolutely.
that was an amazing and overwhelming feeling that I had of the
Mm-hmm.
true meaning of charity that that friend taught me.
Absolutely correct. And this is something that I think many of us would share and I think we referred to this before as well, that the easiest charity is to spend because you don't have to bother much. You just need to maybe swipe a credit card or just send some money. It's the difficult part of that charity is that when you take out time, when you expend some effort, as you have said that she traveled from Dubai to India. And I mean, this is something which we normally would do for our parents maybe or our blood relatives. You hardly see an example in which someone is going to travel for someone who is a domestic staff to her. So I think this is a very, very shining example that she has created. And we thank you for sharing it with us. And it also shows that how humanity should be regardless of any boundaries. It should gush out of us like a fountain, like water gushing out of a fountain, regardless of who is in front of us. So if she did this, it is something of a very, very huge inspiration, I think. And so I can only thank you for sharing this.
Thank you very much. Alina, please go ahead.
Okay, I was just saying that being giving a charity is maybe one of the best feelings that we can have, and nothing like it, as someone earlier also said. And I think the best example I've seen in my life is my mother. She has been a very charitable person. She is, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I do have a small tiff with her because sometimes
Mm,
we cannot always do something for everyone,
mm,
but there are some relatives who are not in the best of conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
when sometimes she shares it with me, and I feel no, they are quite better than many other people on the road. So it's okay not
Mm-hmm.
having few belongings. These furniture and dresses are just something. What about those
Mm-hmm.
people who cannot have
Mm-hmm.
anything at all? I cannot help feeling for them more in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this is
So
what I
you're
just.
right. Yes, I think that is another very valid point that charitability has to be across the board. And we have all kinds of expenditures that we can think of in charitability. But I think the Prophet himself, and even before that, the Quran itself has pointed out that the age-old saying that charity begins at home is something which the Quran has actually said centuries ago, which means that you must start with your nearest. If your family member, any family member, is in a spot of bother, he or she requires some assistance, then it should begin with that particular person, and so on and so forth. So it would not be appropriate that you start doing charity all over the place, all over the world, and people right under your nose, they are in some form of deprivation. So yes, this is something which is very important and a point of concern as well. But I think that maybe this is something that we should teach our children, also our grandchildren, as far as possible. And our parents, they have their own eye, they have their own worldview. At times, we are not able to understand, but I think that being respectful to them and doing what we think is the right thing is the right course.
Thank you very
Right.
much. Habiba Zafar, you're up next.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, so
Walaikum
I am
assalam.
also a student, and what I do just to make Allah Mia happy is कि अगर मेरे पास कोई चीज़ एक्स्ट्रा है जो कि मुझे लगता है कि
Mhm,
शायद मैंने ओवर बाय कर ली है या वो मेरे किसी काम
mhm,
नहीं आती, तो आई डू
mhm,
गिव इट टू पीपल जो कि मुझे लगता है कि शायद वो इस चीज़ को लेके खुश हो जाएँ। फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल मेरी कुरान वाली बाजी हैं एंड शी इज़ नॉट दैट फाइनेंशियली स्ट्रॉन्ग एंड उनकी बहुत सारी बेटियाँ हैं, तो मैं अगर फॉर एग्ज़ाम्पल चूड़ियाँ लेती हूँ, तो मैं थोड़ी ज़्यादा ले लेती हूँ ताकि मैं उनकी बेटियों को दे
mhm,
दूँ एंड वो बहुत खुश होती हैं
mhm,
और बहुत दुआ करती हैं।
mhm,
एंड वन मोर थिंग दैट आई डू इज़ कि मेरी नेबर में एक आंटी हैं, उनका बेटा ऑटिस्टिक है। सो यू नो जो
mhm,
ऑटिस्टिक बच्चे होते हैं वो थोड़ा-सा अवॉइड करते हैं इमोशनल इंटिमेसी को एंड उन्हें अच्छा नहीं लगता ज़्यादा
mhm.
लोगों से बात करना, बट वो मुझसे बहुत अटैच है।
Right.
तो मैं हर रोज़ उससे मिलने
Mhm,
जाती हूँ एंड उसके लिए कोई
mhm,
बिस्किट या कोई स्नैक ले जाती हूँ, सो दैट आई आल्सो डू
mhm.
दैट जस्ट टू प्लीज़ अल्लाह मियाँ। तो दिस इज़ व्हाट आई
That's
डू
very nice.
और अच्छे अखलाक तो
Yeah.
वैसे ही बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है।
That's nice. That is very nice, Habiba. It's always a pleasure to listen to such anecdotes because you see, as I said, it's not just money that is a source of charity. As someone just said, even smiling at people and being
Yes,
of
sir.
good nature and having that countenance in which the other person feels welcome is also a form of charity. And what you do by visiting that autistic child is also something very inspirational and tremendously motivational as well. And keep doing these good things, and they are not only going to help that person, of course, but uh, primarily it's going to help us because see, being given an opportunity to do something and earn reward is something that is going to be ultimately beneficial for our own selves. Of course, it's going to benefit that person as well, but ultimately, the real beneficiary is the person himself who is being charitable.
Yes, sir. Jazakallah.
Thank you. Bisma, please go ahead.
So, Dr. Saleem, I feel after just sitting and thinking for a little bit, I think the most important thing, I think when you are talking about charity, doing for others, I think is
Mm-hmm.
just being happy. I think that's a big form of charity because when you try
Mm-hmm.
to elevate your own spirit and you stay positive,
Mm.
you can elevate somebody else's day. So somebody
Mm.
could be having a terrible day, and just because
Mm.
you tend to give them a different perspective, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
charity. So even if you're not
Right.
meaning to kind of,
Mm-hmm.
visit someone or be with someone who's, either unwell
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, but just a
Mm-hmm.
general charity towards just human being, just being happy, I think is
Mm.
charity enough because that may
Right.
elevate, you don't know how many people in a single day. So just that's my thought on it.
Absolutely. So yes, that is something also very useful, and it's not easy to be always happy because we have our own share of problems and troubles. But a person can only be happy all the time when he or she accepts the will of God. It doesn't mean that he or she is sitting doing nothing. I mean, it means that you are doing the best possible that could have done, and then you are absolutely reconciled to the outcome. And that makes you cheerful and happy that, well, you tried your best, but if God has other plans, then you still are very happy. And this happiness it comes with that tremendous trust in God. I mean, yes, you have your own, you have a bad day, you have many days that might be continuously bad, but so to speak, if you have that philosophy in mind, that basically it is your to do the best that you can, and it is God who is going to ultimately take care of what is ultimately going to transpire. So, as they say that man proposes and God disposes, and also that, as we say that do your best and then hope for the best. So that is how we should be in life, and I think this is what will keep us cheerful and happy. And as you rightly said, that our happiness is going to be contagious. It's going to be transmitted to other people, because this is how happiness is. And if you're sad, if you're cranky, if you're not in a good mood, that is going to be communicated to your own surroundings, and that will be like a chain reaction, and it will be just contagious as well. But a good disposition, a good countenance, a smiling face is going to be contagious as well.
And that I feel, Dr. Saleem, has really helped me. So even when people talk about a lot of things that and of course, doing for others is wonderful, and we all do, we help out, but I honestly feel it begins from the self. And as you said,
Correct.
that I feel is just an amazing thing. If we can all be introspective about that, that'll be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Last call for any more participants for the discussion. If not, then we'll conclude the discussion with thoughts from Dr. Saleem. And okay, so Noshad Shafkat, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Sab. Dr. Sab, let me just
Waalaikumsalam.
preface my statement, discussion with the fact that today, mashallah, your vocabulary and your delivery were absolutely flawless and exemplary. I think I've attended many of your sessions, but today you were, for some reason, to me, you sounded extremely, extremely eloquent. Dr. Sab,
Thank you
my
very much.
view of doing is I usually carry a few toffees in my pocket when I'm out in the market. And when I see a little child, asking his mother for something and crying, I go up to him and make him laugh and make him smile and give him a toffee. And just recently, 15 days ago, I've not mentioned this to anybody, but just because the discussion is about it, I saw a poor lady with two children, and they were passing by an ice cream cone shop, and the children were looking at the shop, with eager eyes. And I just stopped them and I bought the two children there. And then I saw that the mother also would probably like a lick or two. So I got her one too. So that was, I always do this with little children, make them smile. Even if I'm passing by and in another car besides me, there's some child there, I always smile, wave at him. And this, I think, gives me immense internal peace and internal happiness.
Nice. That's a very, very nice sharing, I would say. Yes, carrying toffees and candies in our pockets, it's a very novel idea, and I think we will definitely try to follow your ways. Obviously, instead of giving money, it's much better that you distribute happiness through these small trinkets. Especially the younger lot, they are really happy. And I think it's a very novel way, and I really think that's a very,
So
very
there is
workable.
nothing more pleasurable than seeing a child smile, because his smile
Correct.
is genuine, unless the
Yes.
smiles that many of us have it's being just a
Right.
facade.
It
But
is
when
without
a
any
child
pretense.
smiles, he smiles
Right.
without any pretense. It's from the heart,
Correct.
and it makes you
Yes.
so happy. It
It
elevates
makes
me.
you so
When I
happy.
come back home, I
Yes.
feel so elated about it. Thank you, Dr. Saab. Thank you so much.
And the another so important the thing that you have said is
Ji.
that, I mean, a toffee is a very small thing. I mean, it's such a, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's probably the cheapest thing that you can buy, and the
Ji.
cheapest of things can bring those smiles, which means that, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's not the thing being expensive or less expensive. It's having that utility for the audience that you have, and it
Absolutely.
shows that how small things can make people so much happy.
Right, sir. Right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a word of caution in terms of with toffees and that kind of stuff. Some parents get rightfully so worried because some
Mm.
people have laced them with drugs. So whenever you carry
Oh,
something, make sure that it's well wrapped
right.
and it's
Oh,
known
yes.
brand so that
Correct.
people feel
Absolutely.
okay with
Right.
consuming those.
Ma'am, I make sure because I buy them, I buy the genuine things and I don't buy them just
Oh,
off the
it's
road,
not
like
about
that.
you. Sorry. It's sorry.
No, no, even otherwise. No, no, I know. But I'm just giving my view that
Uh-huh.
I don't do that. I am always very careful about it because I have a grandson too. And
Mm.
I'm very, very careful about these things. Thank you, doctor.
Right. So maybe we can have a taste of the toffee ourselves first to see if there is anything, and then we can go on and have them distributed. So
Right.
okay, that's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Finally, Habiba Zafar, did you want to add something to the discussion?
Yes, I wanted to add कि sometimes क्या होता है कि when I'm walking ना तो I meet people whom I don't know and then like maybe उनकी शायद इतनी अच्छी connection नहीं होती है अपने लोगों से मतलब they just want to talk to someone ना तो they just हमारे सलाम का exchange होता है और बहुत सारी बातें होती हैं उससे I feel कि जब उन्हें ये feel होता है कि they are seen and heard तो उनके वही बात है उनकी face से उनकी smile से ऐसा लगता है कि you know they are praying for me तो किसी stranger को
Mm.
भी अगर आप अच्छे से मिल लेते हैं उसको आप respect दे देते हैं तो that also might be an act of charity.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, if you see in the rest of the world, if you are able to travel and go to various parts of the world, it's a very common norm that strangers they greet one another, they pass on their blessings. Unfortunately, in our own country, seldom does this happen. When we say greetings or pass on our greetings to a stranger, the stranger or the person might feel well that maybe someone is taking advantage of ourselves. So it's a lot to do about culture as well. So the culture here in our country, especially, is one in which you don't speak to strangers and you just keep to your own self. But yes, you're absolutely right that if you take the initiative, then there's a lot of in a lot of cases it happens that you get a very beautiful response. And by the way, we know from the Prophet himself that once someone he was commenting on saying salam and greeting other people, and he is reported to have said that salamta ala man arafta wa man lam ta'rif, that you say salam to people that you know, and also while walking or going to various places, if you encounter people whom you don't know, even you say salam to them. So yes, this is a culture that I think we should create in our own society, in which people who are absolutely unknown, they should feel that comfort and they should feel that we are basically members of a huge clan which is called humanity. So remember, we are distant cousins. We are born from Adam and Eve. So by connecting ourselves to absolute strangers, we actually profess this fact that although we might not be knowing each other, but we know that we have the same ancestors. And this is like a very deeply rooted feeling. It gives you that bond, it gives you that connection, it makes you think that you have support even from people whom you don't know.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. That was it for all the discussion today.
So it might be a couple of there might be a couple of things that I'd like to add to this discussion, and these are of course things that we normally have already we are already aware of them through the Quran, but just to have them as a reminder to us. One of the things that the Quran talks about is that we must not show off our charity. And it says that it's something that if you do so, then this is going to be counterproductive to the very reason that it is done. So, I mean, we all know that showing off or professing something that we have done is going to ruin that act of charity. But yes, there are instances in which we do something and also announce it before people, because our purpose here is not to brag or boast, but the purpose is to inspire people, especially children around us. So, if as an adult you are doing something and you are making a point that your younger lot, your children, your grandchildren, or other youngsters around you, they might notice what you're doing and they would follow suit. So, I think that is an exception. And in order to inspire people, at times you need to have that thing that you make them known through your own action that you would like other people as well to do this charity. The second thing that I have in mind is that there is a way in which we can teach our younger lot to be charitable through money, and that is that when we give pocket money to our children, I don't know. When we were young, we used to receive pocket money. I'm not sure if this custom is still prevalent or not, but I do see that there are households in which pocket money is still given. So my suggestion is that when you give some pocket money, maybe 20% of that pocket money you ask your, or maybe add to that and ask your child that, well, this 20% you must spend in charity wherever you go, maybe to an organization or to some poor person. So in 1 month, you can, let's say, spend 100 rupees on your own self, and 20 rupees. I know 100 rupees has no value. It's just an example that one chunk of money is for your own self, and you give some extra amount to your child that, well, you spend this part specifically for other people, not for your own self. So this will give the child, when he's growing up and she's growing up, he'll or she will develop that habit of spending in the way of other people. Another thing which is important, which the Quran has also reminded us regarding charity, is that we must not pronounce this charity. We must not make this sound as if we are doing a favor to someone. So these favors of generosity, by reminding people that we were kind to them, by reminding people that what we did for them, again, the Quran says that this actually dissipates our charity. It makes us, it lays down that charity into nothingness. It is something that we should avoid. So reminding other people of generosity that we did to them, this is something which is of a very evil nature, because you see, if you did some good term to someone, it is for your own self, and there was a time for it. And now when that person maybe is doing something which you don't like, you're reminding him of that past. And even if this does not happen, at times we become mean by recalling those favors that we have done to such people. So that is also something that we must avoid. And another thing which the Quran has also said about charity, which is something of it's something that we really need to be heedful of, is that the Quran says that we should specially be mindful of people who are not going to come to us to ask for charity. We have to reach out to them because they have this self-esteem. They would not beg, they would not come to you. It is we who have to go to them. So, and I can tell you that maybe 90% of our society consists of people who have that self-esteem. It's not that people who are on the roads and the beggars that we think they are the only ones in need. They are ones who are mostly professional, in fact. So a large part of people consists of those people in our society who have that self-esteem, and they rather sleep empty stomach at night than come and ask for that odd bit of food. So that is also something very important that you must keep account of. And finally, one thing which the Quran has also said about charity, and it says so, it is as if it has said that it is the highest point of charity. It is the pinnacle of charity, and that is in Surah Hashr. It says, "Yusiruna ala anfusihim walau kana bihim khasasa," which means that they give preference to other people even when they themselves are in need. So one thing is that you have spare money and you're spending on other people. And another thing is that you don't have spare money, you have not even sufficient money for your own self, and you're in want, you are in need yourself. But here comes a person, and you actually sacrifice your own need for that person. So the Quran says this is the highest form of charity. And this is one form of charity about which I have heard from my elders, from many people, that if you do this, it's not a guarantee, but it's just a thing that people have experienced, that you experience God. Because when you're in need on a person who is equally needy, then somehow it does happen that God takes care of you in a very special manner. It's not, as I said, it's not something that always happens, but I've heard so many stories, so many true stories in which you sacrifice something for other people, and then you are rewarded in such a huge way from the Almighty that you just could not, you were totally dumbfounded. You were astounded at how something happens. And as the Quran says, يَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ, that it comes from exactly the place that you cannot even imagine. So these are some of the things that the Quran speaks about. And now if we have to progress into the next segment, which is the general Q&A section. So please do so.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We'll progress on to the Q&A. So we'll start off our first question. This one comes from the chat. And this one asks, حضرت عیسیٰ علیہ السلام के बराह रास्त मुखातिबीन को हक से इनकार की वजह से सुन्नत अल्लाह के मुताबिक इस ही दुनिया में सजा देगी, इन्हें नसारा का मगलूब बना दिया गया और वो भी रहते दुनिया तक। आपके बाद आने वाले यहूदियों इन आपके बराह रास्ते मुखातिब तो नहीं है, तो इन तो सजा को इनको क्यों एक्सटेंड किया गया?
I think this is an incorrect understanding of the punishment that was meted out to the deniers of Jesus. That's not what happened. I mean, that did happen, but that was for another reason. The punishment that was inflicted on people who tried to kill Jesus and who denied them was the punishment of death that was actually meted out to them in the form of an attack that was carried out by Titus, the Roman emperor. So within within very few years of the death of Jesus, the second temple was ravaged, and there were scores and scores of people who were put to death. In fact, this took place from history, we know, in 70 AD. And Jesus passed away something in 50 or 55 AD. So within the next 10 or 15 years, it happened that the immediate addressees, they were all destroyed, or a better part of them destroyed. And the Quran is referred to this as well in Surah Bani Israel. As far as the punishment of the Jews is concerned, that they'll remain subservient, that is another law of the Almighty, and that is that the Bani Israel, or the progeny of Abraham, they are given a special status. And regarding the progeny of Israel, it was destined that if they, in the space of so many prophets of God coming to them, they still deny the prophets of God. And we know that in the case of the last prophet of the Israelites, who was Jesus himself, they went as far as to kill them. Then this is basically a punishment that was given to the Israelites in their collectivity, that they'll remain subservient to the Jews. So that is a separate thing. That's a sunnatullah. And you must not confuse this with the other sunnatullah, which is that the immediate addressees of a messenger of God, they are destroyed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, I have a small question, rather. I spend whatever I can from myself to charity. But my wife is my generous, and she has the actually she knows what's in the bank and what's not in the house, and she is much more generous, and she spends so. And she always tells me so I'm asking, because she doesn't work and I work, so in her charity, would I be benefited out of that, or only she?
Of course. I mean, she's using your money. If I understand correctly, she's not working, you're working, but she has control over the bank. So, I mean, it's just that she's spending on your behalf because the money belongs to you.
Yeah, and I always know that because she always tells me, and then I said, I appreciate it.
So basically, you are the person who's going to be rewarded. Of course, she'll be given some partial reward because she was helping out you, but basically, you are the person who's earning and whose money is being spent for this purpose.
Thank you very much, sir. Encouraging, yes.
Thank you. Abi, you're up next.
Doctor, my question is regarding Surah Duha. The last three ayat is addressed to the Prophet or is addressed to the Quraysh?
It is addressed to the Prophet. To the Prophet.
The last three ayat.
Yes, it's to the Prophet.
Yeah,
there cannot be anyone else except the Prophet, because he was the orphan that's been talked about.
Bisma, would you like to go next?
My question, Dr. Saleem, was, when lavish people, or rich people spend extremely extravagantly, but also give to charity. So my question is, because it's so nuanced, humans are so nuanced, even though their intention may be to show off, which is quite repulsive at times to the onlookers, but it's still helping poor people. How are we supposed to perceive that?
I mean, that is, you will be probably deprived of a lot of reward for that. I mean, if you're doing it for show off or some other reason, obviously that person is going to benefit from that money. That is one thing. So maybe you'll be given some part of that reward, but a major part of that reward will be lost.
Because extravagance and being lavish to the extent of it being repulsive, it in itself is so repulsive that I sometimes just wonder, how is one to perceive it? Anyway, yeah, that was my question.
What happens is that people who are addicted to it, people who are compulsive spenders, trust me, you might see them around you, but they are this is what happens. I mean, they would spend millions in a day. Because you see, this is how somehow they have this aberration in themselves, and at times because of low self-esteem, or at times just to show off, at times just to, I mean, you're on a buying spree to buy high brands, etc. So there are many motives for that, but I have seen so many people indulge into it, and a very major part of that indulgence is to show off. I mean, you're spending very high amounts. You are the reason for that is that arrogance that you develop for the money that you have, and you think that you'd like to express yourself as a superior person, and the other people are inferior to you. And this instinct of dominating other people is found in all of us, and we have to curb it actually. And if you are not able to curb it, then at times it has a very subtle form of expressing itself without our realization, and at times these forms are not subtle. So the thing is that this is an instinct that all of us have, that we would like to dominate other people, we would like to be more prominent than other people. So I think this is something that we have to curb. And what I have thought of is that the best way to control this instinct is not to, I mean, you just cannot finish it off. You cannot obliterate it, because it's like thirst. It's like hunger. I mean, this is going to happen all the time. So this instinct is not going to go away. So the best way is to turn the direction of this instinct. And if you want to become prominent, then have this objective before you, that I'm going to become prominent in the eyes of God. So instead of having that motivation that I am going to become prominent and dominate other people and show off myself as if I'm someone very big, I'm going to just change that direction, and I'm going to, instead of starting to impress other people, my objective would be to impress God. So this is how that urge can be, I mean, directed towards achieving a better goal, I think.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Saleem.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Our next question asks, any person receiving charity and who has self-esteem in him will know that charity is being given to him. So how do you avoid triggering these feelings in this person at the time when we're giving charity to them?
So I think you have to be very discreet, you have to be very subtle, you have to be very cautious, you have to be very wise, because these are the things which, of course, bother people. I mean, very small things matter. For example, giving some, if you want to give them some cash, give it in an envelope. If you want, better still, if you're able to give it in a bank account, or by being an anonymous person. So there are ways in which you can remain anonymous, and in which you're able to help people. So think of those ways, find out those ways. So that's a question of being as anonymous as possible.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. I had a question for you. So, like, sometimes when you do something and then you feel really guilty about it, sometimes you feel really guilty to the point of, like, not even wanting to repent to God, because you're like, oh my gosh, you know, why did I do that? I should have not done that in that moment. Like, for example, you hurt someone that you care about. So then you feel guilty about it. But then you don't want to repent. You're like, I should not have even done that in the first place. Like, how do you get over that and repent?
Right. You see, I mean, what has been done cannot be undone. I mean, so the best thing is to gear yourself that it's not going to happen again. So that is the best compensation. I mean, you turn your regret into a positive energy. And that is that I'm not going to have these moments of regret again, because what has happened, I cannot change. But for future, I will not make myself come into this situation that I regret again. So I think this is how you should be motivated, that instead of regretting and complaining and maybe, becoming depressed because you just cannot change the past, it's much better that you channelize that negative energy into a positive commitment, that I'm not going to feel regretful again because I'm not going to repeat it again.
But what if that's already ruined something big in your life?
So then you have to think of compensations, and you see how you can make it up for other people. If you ruined your own life, then of course, I mean, it's always a case of trying to make amends. And I don't think there is anything in life that you are not able to make amends. Maybe it could not be done in its a perfect way or a complete way. But I think compensation through ways in which you are able to lessen that harm in some form or the other can be achieved. I can be specific in my answer if I know exactly, but I mean, to be more general, I think that you have to look for compensations and atonements, and I do think that they are there.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for that answer. We have another question that asks, so this person earns the money, but their wife has the niyat for charity, and this person doesn't. Do they still earn the rewards?
I mean, who is the owner of that money? If the husband is the owner or the wife is the owner, I mean, it depends who the owner is. And if the owner is not willing in any way, or he doesn't have the intention or the niyyah, as you've said, so I mean, what can we do for that person, because he has or she has no intention? But for example, if a person has money and the intention is there, or let me talk about the reverse, that he doesn't have the money but the intention is there, obviously for that the reward would be given. Similarly, if the money is there but there is some hindrance or barrier in implementing or carrying out one's intention, again, I do sincerely hope that inshallah God will reward us, because we had tried our best and something came in between us.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Habiba Zafar, please go ahead.
Okay, sir, so you talk a lot about parenting and guiding everyone कि वो अपने बच्चों के साथ किस तरह अच्छे हो सकते हैं. I want to hear some advices from you कि हम बच्चे अपने parents के साथ कैसे अच्छी communication build कर सकते हैं, because we do have times जहाँ हम उन्हें समझा नहीं पा रहे होते और हमें उनसे ना एक दूर जाने का वो हो रहा होता है कि हमें इन्हें समझा क्यों नहीं पा रहे हैं. You know, आप क्या इसमें advice करेंगे कि हम अपनी communication skills को कैसे बेहतर कर सकते हैं ताकि हमें ये feeling ना आए, you know?
I think there are instances in which, however much you can improve your communication skills, I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but I include myself in this category of Desi parents, that there are things in which you just cannot put across so many things to them because of the mindset they are in. So, if you're not able to put across, don't think that your reasoning is lacking. It is many a time that we parents, we have a block in our minds for certain things, and we are not responding properly. So my advice to you would be, it's not that you are falling short. On many occasions, our children are very smart, they are very sharp, they have very good communication skills, they are very powerfully oriented in their reasoning. But the thing is that the parents, especially the Desi parents, they are not geared towards listening to reason. They are more geared towards emotional dominance. So they would say, well, since I have said it, you have to accept it. So this is a mindset of our Desi parents. So I mean, no offense to anyone. The thing is that you have to politely, affectionately, and lovingly counter this, I would say, slightly dictatorial attitude in life from the parents. So the best thing is that never be rude to them. I mean, if you're not able to make any headway, if you're not able to convince them in any way, remain polite, keep smiling, and maybe at times, I mean, talking to them face to face is not that useful, because you see, your communication is going to be interrupted time and again. So another thing is that you can write a message, an email or a WhatsApp message or whatever, in which you are able to explain fully that I respect you, mother, I respect you, father, very much, but I think that this is how I would like to proceed, and I would like you to give me that freedom. So you see, I mean, it's like communicating to them in a way that is uninterrupted, and you are also not rude in any way. Another thing that at times works is that you can involve some third person, maybe an aunt or an uncle or maybe an elder sibling, because you see, every person has a favorite person. So if you are able to approach that, when your father or your mother's favorite person, and somehow convince that person to put across your viewpoint to your parent, it has worked at times also. And if none of this works, do think that all of us, we are passing through this life which is full of trials. And these trials have various forms. Sometimes we are tried through shortage of resources, sometimes through some ailment or sickness. And there are so many other forms. And one form of this trial is to have relatives, very close one, blood relatives, maybe children, maybe father and a mother or siblings, who behave in this manner. So think of it as a challenge to you, that you have to manage your life. You have to somehow work your way through it. You cannot disown your parents. You cannot disown your children. It's like, for example, if you have a job somewhere and the job is very lucrative, and you have, I mean, you're very well placed. But for example, if your boss there is someone who is behaving in the same way, without, I mean, he doesn't listen to reason, he is dictatorial. I mean, of course, there are certain rights in which he can be dictatorial, but there are other areas in which you feel that the person is not behaving. So what do? You make a compromise. You think that, well, I'm drawing a number of benefits from this organization that I'm working for. So I'll look at these benefits and I'll try my best to circumvent these disadvantages. So in a very similar way, treat it as a challenge, treat it as a thing that you need to overcome. Try to manage it. Don't run away from it. Don't get distraught by it. But think that this is something that God has put your way through, and you have to somehow, make your way through it without being impolite, without being rude, without being impudent in any way. And also, at the end, remember that our prayers also work. They move mountains. So if they are uttered at the right time, at times God changes the heart of other people. Your mother's heart, your father's heart, they might change because you were right in your own approach, but at the same time, you were not rude. You were not, did not speak back to them in a way that is unbecoming. So this also is something that you always pray to God, and that beautiful prayer that we've been taught by the Quran, Rabbir hamhuma kama rabbayani saghira, that God have mercy on them the way they had mercy on us when we were growing up. And always remember their good points. Remember that when we were growing up, we were passing through, we could not have grown up without them. We were totally helpless. We were just, we could not have achieved what we have today. So try to remember their favors, try to remember what they did for you. So this will give you the other side of the picture. If they are being unreasonable, then remember on many occasions they did their best, they sacrificed for you, they went out of their way to support you. So it's like creating that balance and at the same time not giving up.
Thank you very much.
Right, sir. I just asked this question not because my parents are not good or they're not understanding, but sometimes it does happen that you are not able to
Yes, I
explain
understand.
the point of view and all that.
I understand. But you have to be patient, you have to be kind, and think
Yes,
of ways in which you are able to communicate and you know what, when you are persistent and you're polite, when you're
yes, sir.
persistent and you're polite, they, after some time, because you see every person reflects when in seclusion, they will understand that this person is not going to change his or her stance. But if you are not polite, so you see the best of stances can be ruined by impoliteness, and the worst of stances would be acceptable because of politeness. So you see
Right, sir.
how major a role politeness plays. So at times it as I said, it changes the course of rivers and not only rivers, I would say history.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. We have another question in the chat that asks, when Hadith says if God has blessed you with wealth, it should manifest in your clothing, etc. And at the same time, we have another narrative that says, which encourages faqr. Is it not contradictory to have wealth?
What is that narrative which encourages faqr or being totally devoid of sources or living in the minimum amount of sources? I have not seen any such narrative. If you are aware
They
of any
haven't
such narrative,
provided anything.
I'd like to have it cited and seen. I have not seen any such thing from the Prophet as yet.
Well, they haven't provided anything yet, so that
It's
was
not
it.
in the Quran. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. That was it for all the questions today. If last call for any more questions. If not, then we'll be ending the session a little early. All right, that was all. Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem, for another wonderful session filled with lots of tips. And thanks to all the participants for the amazing discussion. I'm glad we all got to learn new ways to do charity and hopefully, inshallah, not just satisfy our selfish selves, but also build us a better place in our future life, inshallah, in the next world, inshallah. And with that,
Inshallah. Thank you very much.
in tomorrow, another session of textual study of the Qur'an, and there will be another youth session starting tomorrow. So the information's been sent out on the groups. If you're interested in having your children join, or if you are under 30 or under yourself, you're very welcome to join the session. And that was all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.